Welcome to HB RV Lifestyle, the podcast. Today's episode, you're going to have to forgive me, but my nose is clogged. I haven't gotten over this allergy attack I've been going through. So there's going to be a little bit some long pauses with me sniffling a little bit. So please just bear with me because I think you're going to at least take the information I'm going to give you today and let it rattle in your brain a little bit. Make you think a little bit. I've been very cautious right now about talking about the conflict that's going on in Ukraine and Russia. And now that Hamas and Israel are now at war, I believe it's just time for me to speak. First off, a lot of this is very scary. I'm scared not because I'm afraid of the United States getting attacked. I'm not worried about us getting attacked here in the United States. And I'll explain a little bit why later. I'm more worried about the world economy and the consequences of so much death and destruction. And it's going to play a role for the next 10, 15 years. We will feel this shockwave 10, 15 years from now. This is not simply just going to be a 4 or 5 day war and then it's over. This is going to drag on, just like the Iraq war, just like the Afghanistan war. We're going back in. It's going to happen. We're going back to war. We never left. If you want to be reality, it's as if they just don't want us to leave. Having two major conflicts at the same time are going to put a real squeeze on oil prices. That doesn't just affect us here in the United States and Canada and Mexico. It doesn't affect North America only. This affects the entire world. First off, let's look at it this way. If the conflict between Israel, Iran, Hamas, whoever's really involved, we don't even know all the major players yet. We just know Israel's bombing the crap out of Gaza right now. That's all we know. We don't know who the major players are yet. We have an idea who the major players are. We have a great educated guess based on information we've collected and information of different folks in the Middle East that have taken responsibility or have taken, they basically confirmed that they are a part of it. But we don't know everybody yet. But we will. It'll come out. Always does. But let's just say, heaven forbid, Turkey is against Israel right now. If you listen to their president or prime minister, he has basically said some very vile things about the Jews. So if this war spreads into Eastern Europe and Central Europe and anywhere along the Mediterranean, imagine places like Tuscany, places in Egypt, North African coast along the Mediterranean. Do you think that those people do not depend on tourism and trade for their economies to feed their families? They do. So if there's a war that spreads through the Mediterranean and into Eastern Europe and Northern Africa, where there are Muslim countries, it's going to hurt economies as bad, or if not worse, than the COVID lockdowns. Because let me tell you, a lot of countries may not like us as a people because we do some dumb stuff, Like this whole gender fight and this whole BS crap that we all attack each other with on a daily basis here in this country. They laugh at us and hate us for it. But they depend on us. They depend on Mexican tourism. They depend on Mexicans and Central Americans that are in the middle to upper class of those countries to fly over and vacation in Italy, Turkey, Greece, Egypt, especially Cairo. Saudi Arabia also has certain sections of its country that depend not just on oil, but also on tourism. So these extremist groups that are attacking Israel and Israel attacking them is not good for all Muslim countries. And it's not good for all European countries because just like what happened during 9/11, air travel was pretty much non-existent for a long time. People do not like to fly from Canada, United States, Brazil, Argentina, over to a conflict area. Go ask Moscow. Moscow depends a lot on tourism. St. Petersburg depends on tourism. If you actually look at the numbers of tourists that have visited these certain Russian countries, it is dove. Poland, their tourism has crashed. Most of Eastern Europe, Northeastern Europe, in through the Baltic Sea, they have their tourism cut down because of the threat of the Ukraine-Russia war bleeding into their country. People don't like to travel where there's conflict. Let's face it. And by the way, this is not being talked about. What's being talked about is all political horse manure and crap. They're not talking about the death toll that this is going to take on several countries. Several innocent people are going to die over these two wars. And these two wars could bleed into something bigger. And now we are going to send, guys, I don't care if they said it or not, Biden, the Senate, House of Representatives, they might be infighting and trying to get a leg up on each other about the situation politically. But let's face it, we're going back to war with the Middle East. We pretty much are the Russia of the 1980s and 90s. Where when we leave the conflict and decide to walk away, we're dragged right back into it. And we're getting dragged right back into this thing. And in this case, we're going to be the bad guy. The United States is going to end up the bad guy because we are so full of horse manure and crap and hypocrisy. Because we're so divided as a people that no one believes anything that comes out of our mouths anymore. You have 4 specific politicians that are okay with Hamas raping and killing people. Raping women and children. They don't condone it. They don't tell you it's wrong. They just tell you that we're wrong in supporting Israel. Where's our common sense at? Where did common sense go? Did it just go out the bloody window? Did it just decide to disappear and go into the atmosphere?